Go ahead and record this so we can share it with people who are not here today.
What page is that?
In my book, it's page 553. Okay, let me just get up to my screen here.
What chapter did you say?
We're on chapter 26.
Oh, 26.
Section 6, the appointed friend. All right. Anything in this world that you believe is good and valuable and worth striving for can hurt you and will do so. Not because it has the power to hurt, but just because you have denied it is but an illusion and made it real. And it is real to you. It is not nothing. And through its perceived reality has entered all the world of sick illusions, all belief in sin, in power of attack, in hurt and harm, in sacrifice and death has come to you. For no one can make one illusion real and still escape the rest. For who can choose to keep the ones that he prefers and find the safety that the truth alone can give? Who can believe illusions are the same and still maintain that even one is best? Lead not your little life in solitude with one illusion as your only friend. This is no friendship worthy of God's Son, nor one with which he could remain content. Yet God has given him a better friend, in whom all power in earth and heaven rests. The one illusion that you think is friend obscures his grace and majesty from you and keeps his friendship and forgiveness from your welcoming embrace. Without him, you are friendless. Seek not another friend to take his place. There is no other friend. What God appointed has no substitute. For what illusion can replace the truth? Who dwells with shadows is alone indeed, and loneliness is not the will of God. Would you allow one shadow to usurp the throne that God appointed for your friend? If you but realized its emptiness has left yours empty and unoccupied. Make no illusion friend, for if you do, it can but take the place of him whom God has called your friend. And it is he who is your only friend in truth. He brings you gifts that are not of this world, and only he to whom they have been given can make sure that you receive them. He will place them on your throne when you make room for him on his. It's interesting. I think that spoke a little bit to what you and I were talking about earlier, Pam. You know, when we make illusions real and we look at them as our friend, and then we get all stressed out about pleasing the friend and, you know, what'll happen if I don't? And we shoot ourselves to death, right? Instead of really looking at the one true friend that we have, that is our connection to the one mind of God. And we always forget, right? To go inside. And I think it is through that connection to that one mind that we can actually truly love each other. Otherwise, there really isn't a real connection to anything else. Right. If we don't go through that source of connection.
I see that from a previous reading, I had written in the margin here at the top of the appointed friend, I said, there are many voices in the world. Listen only to Jesus. I don't remember when that was. And then in that third paragraph, I had underlined the make no illusion friend. And then in the margin, I wrote person, place, or thing.
Perfect. And look at, that's exactly what we were talking about earlier. Person, place, and thing, right?
Yeah.
And just how much it had taken you out of your place of peace and how much you're struggling with it, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I knew I needed to be here.
Yeah. It's so interesting, right? And we just have that, just have to remember that connection.
Mhm. Yeah. And to get that support to be reminded.
Mhm. Right. Right. Because there's so many things in our everyday experience that pulls us away from that, that makes
Right.
us forget, because it's all the chatter, right? Do this, do that, come here, go there. You have to do this, you have to be with this person, you have to do that other thing. And we forget just to quiet that
Yeah.
mind,
I need do nothing.
right?
One of my biggest struggles is time frames. Oh my gosh, do I have enough time to do that? Or, oh my gosh, this is coming up. I've got to do this, this, and this kind of thing. And like you said, Terry, that constant chatter that pulls you away. And for me, I get this, like I said last week, I get spun up in time frames. And now, we've had 2 years to think about this wedding, and now we're a month away. And I don't know why, because everything's all taken care of. But I got to find that on off switch. It's in there somewhere.
Yeah. Or even the ability to enjoy the moment, enjoy all of the little things that are coming up to this moment that's been planned and prepared for the last 2 years.
Yeah.
And if things don't go perfectly, okay, let it go, right?
It's all
Yeah.
perfect.
It's all perfectly imperfect.
Perfectly imperfect. Perfectly perfect.
Right. All right. Shall I continue reading, or does anybody else have something they want to share about the appointed friend?
Has anyone ever looked into the throne that's talked about at the last part,
In what way, Eric?
last sentence? In the way of like, what does he mean? He will place them on your throne. You make room for him.
Yes.
I mean, I would imagine it would be similar to your altar, right? Or your place of where you go to.
In section 6, is that we're on? Yes, section 6. So in section 6 also, it says earlier in the same paragraph, would you allow one shadow to usurp the throne that God appointed for your friend? Speaking about our friend, if you but realized its emptiness has left yours empty and unoccupied. So in other sections, it talks about the throne very infrequently, but in the workbook, 125, there's this, it says, "Hear, Holy Son of God, your Father speak. His voice would give you his holy word to spread across the world the tidings of salvation and the holy time of peace. We gather at the throne of God today, the quiet place within the mind where he abides forever in the holiness that he created and will never leave." Now, the reason I asked about it was because recently I've been looking at the idea of seeing my inner purpose and joining with my inner purpose with the Holy Spirit to upgrade it, to elevate it, to make it holy. So holy relationships became important to me some few years ago. And I started to really pay attention to the idea that we're here to be truly helpful, and that we would be directed in what we would say would be shown to us or given to us. So I began to see like, well, I need to keep myself then in a different place, because relating to people is certainly not what he's exactly talking about. He's exactly talking about instead the communication that's from the Holy Spirit through the mind, but not from the mind specifically, alone mind, I mean, but through the union of the mind to recognize truth. So in an earlier chapter, he tells us that we have to not alter the truth. And what I discovered was, for me, it doesn't seem that it's possible to do that and do that in normal interactions with people, with their problems and their dilemmas that they get stuck in. To speak about somebody's problem seems to present difficulties within myself, so that I have to have this sort of true self that I can count on, that it won't allow me to want to. It would allow me, but it would not, I would not move away from it because it would be true to me.
Mhm.
So to that own self be true, this inner self can be true to me.
Right.
It therefore becomes seemingly my servant in a way, but also it seems to not be needy to move away from the truth. So anyway, I've been working on it for quite a while this year, and I found myself realizing that it's almost impossible to interact with people when there's difficulties or discussions that were related to some kind of dilemma, some kind of problem.
Mhm.
There is no problems in the world, so it makes it very difficult to have a conversation about problems.
Right.
So having conversations about people's problems becomes easier only when, in fact, I see that they don't really have a problem. They're just discussing something that they're bringing to the Holy Spirit. The letter of prayer, we bring to the Holy Spirit whatever we seem to be troubled by, or we bring to the Holy Spirit whatever we seem to be not troubled by, so that this inner self becomes something that is elevated always. At some other place, let me just look quickly, I think I can. In lesson 194, he says, in no one instant is depression felt or pain experienced or loss perceived. In no one instance, sorrow can be set upon a throne and worshiped faithfully. In no one instant can one even die. And so each instant given unto God is passing. With one given him already is the time of your release from sadness, pain, and even death itself. So this throne is apparently, it's apparently sort of a forerunner in a sense, sort of a foresight in a sense, sort of a glimpse of the realization of the truth of myself. That I don't have to be removed from the truth by arguing or being used in some way that I think I'm being misused, or by condemning those thoughts that people are talking about with their dilemmas and so on and so forth. So it's an even equality that is something that I couldn't really do on my own.
Right.
It's an equality about it with people that I couldn't do on my own, because with people, when it seemed like it was dealing with their dilemmas and their confusion or mine, I was just as confused as everybody else, believe me. So dealing with those things, it seemed impossible to stay with this "do thine own self be true" even.
Mhm.
Thine own self be true is more of an AA sort of thing, logo, you know. How do we do that? By service, by recovery, and by service, recovery, and unity, right? Unity. So those are the ideas that came from AA, and it seems like the Course in Miracles is telling us the same thing. To thine own self be true, though, is not external to yourself.
Right.
There's nothing external to yourself this way. And allowing myself to see it, it became clear to me also that isn't that really creating again? You know, in other words, I'm not creating my image outside myself and my idol of myself. I'm trying to concentrate instead on what I was given, what was shown to me, what's in my heart, without my mind wandering from it. Can I keep myself more in line with that instead of falling back into the argumentative or the difficulties and confusion? It also came up last week as we were talking about the use of mind-altering substances, whatever names they had. I don't even know some of them. But we were talking about that, and it began to become clear to me that I was having a reaction to the fact that that was brought up, and that I don't think that that's really a way to make progress, and that was what I started with. So when I began the week last week, that's where my beginning point was. When we ended last week, though, I was reviewing the fact that, well, there's no real content. There's no real form that we're talking about specifically. What we're talking about is different people's experiences, and everybody's different experiences leads them on the path, which is perfect for them, whatever that is. And this is what we can't really, we can't really confuse for ourselves that my path and your path are exactly the same until they come to exactly the same place. The same place is total forgiveness and healing and miracle mindedness. But beyond that, even it's this throne, apparently.
Mm-hmm. All
So
paths
we
lead
elevated to this throne, apparently, is really where the ending point or the last moment of time occurs in the holy instant. Then, anyway, that's my ideas about the throne. I think it's interesting, and maybe be helpful to other people. I don't know. I talked to you. Sorry
I
about
find too, you know, as you said, there's no point in diving into discussing people's grievances with them, right? Because whatever you share, you strengthen. But what I've done in the past, when I've been in relationship with someone who's been, you know, arguing with me, let's say, I've actually stopped, lit a candle, and I've said, lesson 365, this holy instant I give to you, like just giving everything that is me to that throne of God, right? To the one mind of God. Be you in charge, for I shall follow you. Certain your direction will bring me peace. And just completely letting go of the argument, the conflict, whatever was happening. So I wasn't engaging in it. And then I just started having this flow of words that just started coming out. It had nothing to do with what the other person was saying to me, but it was exactly the right thing. And it just put out the fire. And I think that's the thing that's so interesting, is so many times we think we have to address the problem that's being brought up, right? We have to dive into this problem when it's not even about that, right? And if we can let go of it being that and instead connect to that one mind of God, then the right words will come through without judgment, without hesitation, without anyone feeling condemned or not heard or anything. And we don't know what those words are because we've already aligned with the ego. If we're involved in an argument, we've already aligned with fear. So anything that comes out of our mouth from that perspective is not going to be helpful for anybody. So I think, you know, that going back to the throne and connecting to that one mind of God, even in those places of conflict, is just so important, especially, you know, and that's all about our brother and our brother's gift to us, and seeing that and being present for that. I just want to welcome Carol and Cynthia. Good to have you guys here. We're on chapter 26. We just read section 6, and I'm going to go ahead and share my screen so that we can continue with the laws of healing. Okay, the laws of healing. This is a course in miracles. As such, the laws of healing must be understood before the purpose of the course can be accomplished. Let us review the principles that we have covered and arrange them in a way that summarizes all that must occur for healing to be possible. For when it once is possible, it must occur. All sickness comes from separation. When the separation is denied, it goes. For it is gone as soon as the idea that brought it has been healed and been replaced by sanity. Sickness and sin are seen as consequence and cause in a relationship, kept hidden from awareness, that it may be carefully preserved from reason's light. Guilt asks for punishment, and its request is granted. Not in truth, but in the world of shadows and illusions built on sin. The Son of God perceived what he would see because perception is a wish fulfilled. Perception changes, made to take the place of changeless knowledge. Yet is truth unchanged? It cannot be perceived, but only known. What is perceived takes many forms, but none has meaning. Brought to truth, its senselessness is quite apparent. Kept apart from truth, it seems to have a meaning and be real. Perception's laws are opposite to truth, and what is true of knowledge is not true of anything that is apart from it. Yet has God given answer to the world of sickness, which applies to all its forms. God's answer is eternal, though it works in time where it is needed. Yet because it is of God, the laws of time do not affect its workings. It is in this world, but not a part of it. For it is real and dwells where all reality must be. Ideas leave not their source, and their effects but seem to be apart from them. Ideas are of the mind. What is projected out and seems to be external to the mind is not outside at all, but an effect of what is in, and has not left its source. God's answer lies where the belief in sin must be, for only there can its effects be utterly undone and without cause. Perception's laws must be reversed, because they are reversals of the laws of truth. The laws of truth forever will be true and cannot be reversed, yet can be seen as upside down. And this must be corrected where the illusion of reversal lies. It is impossible that one illusion be less amenable to truth than are the rest. But it is possible that some are given greater value and less willingly offered to truth for healing and for help. No illusion has any truth in it, yet it appears some are more true than others, although this clearly makes no sense at all. All that a hierarchy of illusions can show is preference, not reality. What relevance has preference to the truth? Illusions are illusions and are false. Your preference gives them no reality. Not one is true in any way, and all must yield with equal ease to what God gave as answer to them all. God's will is one, and any wish that seems to go against his will has no foundation in the truth. Sin is not error, for it goes beyond correction to impossibility. Yet the belief that it is real has made some errors seem forever past the hope of healing and the lasting grounds for hell. If this were so, would heaven be opposed by its own opposite, as real as it? Then would God's will be split in two, and all creation be subjected to the laws of two opposing powers until God becomes impatient, splits the world apart, and relegates attack unto himself. Thus has he lost his mind, proclaiming sin has taken his reality from him and brought his love at last to vengeance heels. For such an insane picture, an insane defense can be expected, but cannot establish that the picture must be true. Nothing gives meaning where no meaning is, and truth needs no defense to make it true. Illusions have no witnesses and no effects. Who looks on them is but deceived. Forgiveness is the only function here and serves to bring the joy this world denies to every aspect of God's Son, where sin was thought to rule. Perhaps you do not see the role forgiveness plays in ending death and all beliefs that rise from mists of guilt. Sins are beliefs that you impose between your brother and yourself. They limit you to time and place and give a little space to you, another little space to him. This separating off is symbolized in your perception by a body, which is clearly separate and a thing apart. Yet what this symbol represents is but your wish to be apart and separate. Forgiveness takes away what stands between your brother and yourself. It is the wish that you be joined with him and not apart. We call it wish because it still conceives of other choices and has not yet reached beyond the world of choice entirely. Yet is this wish in line with heaven's state and not in opposition to God's will, although it falls far short of giving you your full inheritance. It does remove the obstacles that you have placed between the heaven where you are and recognition of where and what you are. Facts are unchanged. Yet facts can be denied and thus unknown, though they were known before they were denied. Salvation, perfect and complete, asks but a little wish that what is true be true, a little willingness to overlook what is not there, a little sigh that speaks for heaven as a preference to this world that death and desolation seem to rule. In joyous answer will creation rise within you to replace the world you see with heaven, wholly perfect and complete. What is forgiveness but a willingness that truth be true? What can remain unhealed and broken from a unity which holds all things within itself? There is no sin, and every miracle is possible the instant that the Son of God perceives his wishes and the will of God are one. What is the will of God? He wills his Son have everything, and this he guaranteed when he created him as everything. It is impossible that anything be lost if what you have is what you are. This is the miracle by which creation became your function, sharing it with God. It is not understood apart from him, and therefore has no meaning in this world. Where does the Son of God ask not too much, but far too little? He would sacrifice his own identity with everything to find a little treasure of his own. And this he cannot do without a sense of isolation, loss, and loneliness. This is the treasure he has sought to find, and he could only be afraid of it. Is fear a treasure? Can uncertainty be what you want, or is it a mistake about your will and what you really are? Let us consider what the error is, so it can be corrected, not protected. Sin is belief. Attack can be projected outside the mind, where the belief arose. Here is the firm conviction that ideas can leave their source, made real and meaningful. And from this error does the world of sin and sacrifice arise. This world is an attempt to prove your innocence while cherishing attack. Its failure lies in that you still feel guilty, though without understanding why. Effects are seen as separate from their source and seem to be beyond you to control or to prevent. What is thus kept apart can never join. Cause and effect are one, not separate. God wills you learn what always has been true, that he created you as part of him. And this must still be true, because ideas leave not their source. Such is creation's law, that each idea the mind conceives, but adds to its abundance, never takes away. This is as true of what is idly wished as what is truly willed, because the mind can wish to be deceived, but cannot make it be what it is not. And to believe ideas can leave their source is to invite illusions to be true without success. For never will success be possible in trying to deceive the Son of God. The miracle is possible when cause and consequence are brought together, not kept separate. The healing of effect without the cause can merely shift effects to other forms, and this is not release. God's Son could never be content with less than full salvation and escape from guilt. For otherwise, he still demands that he must make some sacrifice, and thus denies that everything is his, unlimited by loss of any kind. A tiny sacrifice is just the same in its effects as is the whole idea of sacrifice. If loss in any form is possible, then is God's Son made incomplete and not himself. Nor will he know himself, nor recognize his will. He has forsworn his Father and himself and made them both his enemies in hate. Illusions serve the purpose they were made to serve, and from their purpose, they derive whatever meaning that they seem to have. God gave to all illusions that were made another purpose that would justify a miracle, whatever form they took. In every miracle, all healing lies, for God gave answer to them all as one. And what is one to him must be the same. If you believe what is the same is different, you but deceive yourself. What God calls one will be forever one, not separate. His kingdom is united. Thus it was created, and thus will it ever be. The miracle but calls your ancient name, which you will recognize because the truth is in your memory. And to this name, your brother calls for his release and yours. Heaven is shining on the Son of God. Deny him not, that you may be released. Each instant is the Son of God reborn until he chooses not to die again. In every wish to hurt, he chooses death instead of what his Father wills for him. Yet every instant offers life to him because his Father wills that he should live. In crucifixion is redemption laid, for healing is not needed where there is no pain or suffering. Forgiveness is the answer to attack of any kind. So is attack deprived of its effects, and hate is answered in the name of love. To you, whom it has been given to save the Son of God from crucifixion and from hell and death, all glory be forever. For you have power to save the Son of God because his Father willed that it be so. And in your hands does all salvation lie, to be both offered and received as one. To use the power God has given you as he would have it used is natural. It is not arrogant to be as he created you, nor to make use of what he gave to answer all his Son's mistakes and set him free. But it is arrogant to lay aside the power that he gave and choose a little senseless wish instead of what he wills. The gift of God to you is limitless. There is no circumstance it cannot answer, and no problem which is not resolved within its gracious light. Abide in peace where God would have you be, and be the means whereby your brother finds the peace in which your wishes are fulfilled. Let us unite in bringing blessing to the world of sin and death. For what can save each one of us can save us all. There is no difference among the sons of God. The unity that specialness denies will save them all. For what is one can have no specialness, and everything belongs to each of them. No wishes lie between a brother and his own. To get from one is to deprive them all, and yet to bless but one gives blessing to them all as one. Your ancient name belongs to everyone, as theirs to you. Call on your brother's name, and God will answer, for on him you call. Could he refuse to answer when he has already answered all who call on him? A miracle can make no change at all, but it can make what always has been true be recognized by those who know it not. And by this little gift of truth, but let to be itself, the Son of God allowed to be himself, and all creation freed to call upon the name of God as one. Well, that was a lot. Hope I didn't put any of you to sleep. It was all good stuff though, right? A lot of good information there.
It was good stuff. Thank you for that sharing you did before you started this section also. That was very helpful. You know, in chapter 4, it talks about in all these diversionary tactics, there is one question that is never asked by those who pursue them. What for? This question that you must learn to ask is in connection with everything. This question, what is the purpose? So this section also answers that. What is the purpose? Everything has its purpose. And since I don't know what the purpose is, then I have to ask constantly, what is the purpose of this? Constantly, because everything seems to change outside of that. Outside of whatever is the true purpose of anything seems to always be changing. In other words, the universe itself, the world itself, the people, places, situations, circumstances, animals, plants, whatever, all that's constantly changing. So I'm not really asking what's the purpose of the changing. I'm asking what's the true purpose, the unchanging purpose of everything that God sees. What is that purpose?
On the whole,
I really like this section. I read it every once in a while. Thank you.
No, thank you for sharing. I think we all ask that question, right? At some point, what is the purpose? I remember saying that very upset and angrily at times in my life. What is the point? Why am I here? I don't understand. And then, of course, when you do that and you give it up and you stop trying to figure it out yourself, then you're really letting go, right? And you're asking the question of the one mind of God. And if you can stop yourself from trying to answer it, then the answer will come. But I think it's in our ego mind that thinks we have to have all the answers, that we think we're supposed to answer that question. What's the purpose? Well, it's not for me to answer with this mind, with this separate body mind. It can only be answered when I connect to the one mind of God. And when I connected with the one mind of God, the question becomes ridiculous, right? There's not even the question, what's the purpose? I think it's just it's I am, and that's it. And then there's no more talking. There's no more question. There's no more wondering or worrying. It's just being in that place of the one mind.
The question becomes the answer.
Holy Spirit becomes the answer. What if I say to myself, oh, I seem to be disconnected from my mind again, the unifying mind, and I seem to be connected instead with a human mind. So there's another stage in between, though. There's another level of that. That's the wrong mind. It's called, of course, called a wrong mind. It's not embodied. It's the sense about things that are different. It's changing, constantly upsetting or worrisome or difficult or confusing at all. Contradictory, regrets and so on and so forth seem to arise from that mind, which is unconscious to my human mind. So, we say the ego, as if the ego is something that's conscious to our minds, but actually it doesn't start that way. It emerges just like everything else emerges. A miracle impulse seems to emerge. A miracle impulse, however, is what I connect with, not what emerges. What does do the emerging, though, is this ego sense or this wrong mind. It emerges from seemingly within the body. Of course, it doesn't really emerge from any place because, in fact, it isn't even there.
Right.
And so, therefore, it's my deception of myself to see that I continue to be something that's separate from everything else that's real. But thinking myself to be real when this happens, it's easy to get caught up in the opposition, really, to whatever is real. So I don't recognize that I'm opposing everything that's real. And this is why I seem to need that inner self. The constancy of the inner self doesn't want to change, but it wants to be elevated or increased.
Right. And the Course says there are no levels even. So there's no levels within that, right? So I guess the answer is whenever you're not feeling joy, you're not aligned with the one mind of God. And that's your answer. When you're like, well, what is this? Well, you're not in a place to answer it right now because you're not aligned with joy. So the only answer is to align with joy, align with the one mind of God. And that can be the only answer. Because in that place of separation, you can't have an answer.
Thank you. So I never really can express myself honestly using my voice, it seems. So therefore, I seem to think that I'm always misaligned from my heart. What God put in my heart seems to be I'm misaligned from it always. So for me, the experience of this inner self seems to need elevation constantly. So the only change that seems to occur is that it needs elevation, which isn't really change. It's really increasing of my mind to be in the truth instead of my mind to be sort of believing that it has to wander into what's that about? What's that about? What's that about to answer it myself? Or in reality, I suppose we could say the ego answers it in opposition to what's a real. But I didn't really want to go there today.
Right. Good questions. Thank you for sharing that, Eric. All right. Anybody have any other thoughts that they want to share before we continue?
This was a very long one about healing. There's a couple of things that come to mind, a couple of lines that I remember. One of them was, guilt asks for punishment. The other line was, now I can't remember the other one. Oh, that sin does not exist. To me, what that is saying is that we're caught up in these forms of the illusion. We believe them, and that's what causes the separation. Concepts that are, I mean, they're concepts that we're not used to hearing. You know, to hear that sin is not, it doesn't exist, really throws that what I call the wrench into the machinery that we live by. And to think of guilt as being asking for punishment are those things that in us are sort of contradictory to what our belief system is. Yet what the Course is trying to do is to dispel all that stuff. And that's how we fight, that's how we gotta get closer to the peace, and also to the God of the mind of God, or the mind of being in peace and being in love, feeling that love vibe. I mean, look how long this thing was, paragraph to paragraph, like 15 paragraphs or something like that. Really trying to drive that point into focus.
That's a great share. Thank you, Ernesto. Another one of these that really resonated with me is when it's in the 11th paragraph says, what is the will of God? He wills his son have everything. And this he guaranteed when he created him as everything. It is impossible that anything be lost if what you have is what you are. You know, and we're always thinking, well, this person did this thing to me, or I don't have this thing and this person has more than I have, and it's not fair that I have less than all these other people. And it's like, we have everything. We were created to have everything, but we project all of these little things outside of ourselves as if they are the thing we want, instead of knowing that we already have everything. We are everything. We can't be less than what we are, which is everything. And it's all about getting out of the illusion, right? Just getting out of the cage we put ourselves in by believing that we are less than everything.
Yeah, the escape seems really hard when the confusion begins.
Right.
The contrasting also seems hard because we're trying to do the contrasting ourselves. So by asking instead, what's the right choice? What choice would you make? How would you show me the choice? Whatever question I'm getting towards, realizing that I have to recognize the truth instead of try to make it myself. Then in fact, I begin to be on the right track again.
Exactly.
But the right track is not my making either. So it's like, I can't even say what your right track is, or, he does in many chapters, many sections, he gives us very specific instructions for something. So we
Right.
get back on the right track again. But I can't seem to do that, to tell you the truth. So I'm just at that place where I'm seeing I am creating with the Holy Spirit something that's increasing.
Mhm.
I just need to keep my mind on what I'm supposed to be doing so I can be that instead of doing that.
Right. Right. Just letting, and it's constantly just letting go, letting go, letting go, letting go, letting go, letting
It is.
go. Okay, let's continue. We are on the immediacy of salvation. The one remaining problem that you have is that you see an interval between the time when you forgive and will receive the benefits of trusting in your brother. This but reflects the little you would keep between you and your brother, that you and he might be a little separate. For time and space are one illusion, which takes different forms. If it has been projected beyond your mind, you think of it as time. The nearer it is brought to where it is, the more you think of it in terms of space. There is a distance you would keep apart from your brother, and the space you perceive as time, because you still believe you are external to him. This makes trust impossible, and you cannot believe that trust would settle every problem now. Thus, do you think it safer to remain a little careful and a little watchful of interests perceived as separate? From this perception, you cannot conceive of gaining what forgiveness offers now. The interval you think lies in between the giving and receiving of the gift seems to be one in which you sacrifice and suffer loss. You see eventual salvation, not immediate results. Salvation is immediate. Unless you so perceive it, you will be afraid of it, believing that the risk of loss is great between the time its purpose is made yours and its effects will come to you. In this form is the error still obscured. That is the source of fear. Salvation would wipe out the space you see between you still and let you instantly become as one. And it is here you fear the loss would lie. Do not project this fear to time, for time is not the enemy that you perceive. Time is as neutral as the body is, except in terms of what you see it for. If you would keep a little space between you and your brother still, you then would want a little time in which forgiveness is withheld a little while. And this but makes the interval between the time in which forgiveness is withheld from you and given seem dangerous, with terror justified. Yet space between you and your brother is apparent only in the present now and cannot be perceived in future time. No more can it be overlooked except within the present. Future loss is not your fear, but present joining is your dread. Who can feel desolation except now? A future cause as yet has no effects, and therefore must it be that if you fear, there is a present cause. And it is this that needs correction, not a future state. The plans you make for safety all are laid within the future, where you cannot plan. No purpose has been given it as yet, and what will happen has as yet no cause. Who can predict effects without a cause? And who could fear effects unless he thought they had been caused and judged disastrous now? Belief in sin arouses fear, and like its cause is looking forward, looking back, but overlooking what is here and now. Yet only here and now its cause must be, if its effects already have been judged as fearful. And in overlooking this, is it protected and kept separate from healing. For a miracle is now. It stands already here in present grace within the only interval of time that sin and fear have overlooked, but which is all there is to time. The working out of all correction takes no time at all, yet the acceptance of the working out can seem to take forever. The change of purpose the Holy Spirit brought to your relationship has in it all effects that you will see. They can be looked at now. Why wait till they unfold in time and fear they may not come, although already there? You have been told that everything brings good that comes from God, and yet it seems as if this is not so. Good in disastrous form is difficult to credit in advance, nor is there really sense in this idea. Why should the good appear in evil's form? And is it not deception if it does? Its cause is here if it appears at all. Why are not its effects apparent then? Why in the future? And you seek to be content with sighing and with reasoning. You do not understand it now, but will someday. And then its meaning will be clear. This is not reason, for it is unjust, and clearly hints at punishment until the time of liberation is at hand. Given a change of purpose for the good, there is no reason for an interval in which disaster strikes, to be perceived as good someday, but now in form of pain. This is a sacrifice of now, which could not be the cost the Holy Spirit asks for what he gave without a cost at all. Yet this illusion has a cause which, though untrue, must be already in your mind. And this illusion is but one effect that it engenders, and one form in which its outcome is perceived. This interval in time, when retribution is perceived to be the form in which the good appears, is but one aspect of the little space that lies between you, unforgiven still. Be not content with future happiness. It has no meaning and is not your just reward. For you have cause for freedom now. What profits freedom in a prisoner's form? Why should deliverance be disguised as death? Delay is senseless, and the reasoning that would maintain effects of present cause must be delayed until a future time is merely a denial of the fact that consequence and cause must come as one. Look not to time, but to the little space between you still to be delivered from, and do not let it be disguised as time, and so preserved because its form is changed, and what it is cannot be recognized. The Holy Spirit's purpose now is yours. Should not his happiness be yours as well? Well, there's a lot to think about.
This reminds me of that movie Interstellar, where the hero of the whole movie is suddenly found himself in a black hole, but the black hole becomes something of his imagination where he can actually connect with himself through his daughter, who's now in the future, by connecting with her through the bookcase, where all the holy books or whatever they were to him, where all those were contained on that bookshelf.
That was such a good movie.
And the watch was a part of it also. So he was transcending time from this trans-temporal place within his imagination within a black hole, and then connecting with the characters from his past, the dream characters from his past on a planet that's now in the future, but he's connecting with it in its past. So he's transcending time, and he's actually making space with himself for the forgiveness of all the events that occurred to him getting to the black hole. Where do you remember he took another one of those robot things in with him? I don't remember what happened to that character, but the robot character somehow held his imagination with him also.
Yeah, it's been a long time since I've seen the movie, so I don't really remember all of the aspects, but I do remember it being one of those movies where you're like, oh, wow, this is really cool.
Yeah, it can really give you a lot of interesting
Yeah, yeah,
thought
yeah.
experiments.
Anybody have any other thoughts about what I just read? The immediacy of salvation, right? Because we're always looking for some future explanation, right? Some disaster comes. Well, we don't really know why this happened, but maybe we will in time. We don't really know why this horrible thing happened right now, but there must be some explanation for it in the future.
It seems to be a question almost like, so what is all this about? And oh, never mind. I can't really quite understand it anyway. It'll come to me sooner or later. It's like
Right.
a crutch almost. It's like, oh my God, that would really weary me if I knew that. Oh, I don't really know if I want to even know that.
Right. Instead of just being here in this moment now and healing that separation with all of our brothers. We have those opportunities, but we delay it. We delay it. We delay it.
Yeah, if I don't see you in the future, I'll see you in the pasture.
That's a good one, Carl. I see that on a t-shirt with some of your beautiful artwork.
Well, it's an old saying.
That's great. That's great.
Depends what you find in that pasture, though.
Yeah.
Got for shit.
Maybe some mushrooms.
Yeah, right.
There you
That's
go.
that's what I was inferring.
There you go. There you go. Bring back to all the illusions. But we all have a path, right? We're all on our path. And here's another interesting thing. We're talking about this might have happened or that might have happened, and we might know the reason why it in the future. But going back to what we talked about earlier and what Eric brought up is all paths lead to God, right? All of them. And it's not my business or concern how your path is leading to God, whether it's through mushrooms or through murdering somebody. I mean, who knows how and why each person's path is leading them to God, but it's just in that knowing that all paths do lead to God. And sometimes it's hard for us to let go and not wanting to try to control other people's paths, right? You're on the wrong path. That path can't possibly lead to God because it's wrong. Judged it as being wrong. So if we could just know that all paths lead to God, and in that knowing, we could join with our brother, right? In that mind, because we all want the same thing.
In that reassurance, it's in we are reassured that regardless, we're going to go there.
Right.
Yeah.
It goes back to that purpose we're searching for, right?
Be happy now.
Well, that's what when I said that the answer is in the question. That's what I was inferring. Like for instance, this catastrophe that happened in Korea, it made me think of it when I was that part that you were reading. I mean, who knows why that happened? But nonetheless, all those people now have joined in that spirit world.
And here's another interesting thing about that comment, Ernesto, is that death of the body is just another illusion, right? That doesn't necessarily confirm that now you're one with the mind of God, right? I think it goes back to the work has to be done here and now in this moment. And you can't just say, oh, well, eventually I'll get there because I'll die. And when I die, I'll just get there automatically. I don't know that that's true. I think, again, it's the belief in the separation. If you perpetuate that, then you're going to perpetuate that you're still separate.
Yeah, no, that's the whole thing about the unknown. That's an unknown that we kind of have a vision of it or whatever it is that we have of it. Because in reality, we do not know.
Yeah. And in reality, we're not separate from all those people who we think are now part of that one mind, right?
We're learning to become one. That's what we are. We're learning to become one. Once we're one, we leave this bond.
Or we're remembering that we are one.
Exactly. Now,
Right. Right. Exactly.
Remember the movie with Robin Williams and he dies after his wife had committed suicide? What's the name of that?
What dreams may come.
That's what good memory. What dreams may come. So he ends up in this place that's sort of like, it's just nice. And he goes from the country where his wife and he had imagined their lives with happiness. And he goes from the country into the city and he meets some individuals in the city that can take him into the underworld or whatever it was called in that movie. And he goes and he finds his wife there and they warn him about how complicated it's going to be and so on and so forth. And they don't really give too much of that, that deceptiveness, too much credit, but it's obvious though that it's very deceiving is what you'll see there or what you experience there or what you wonder there, or what kind of questions you might ask or whatever. And it seems to me that's the bardo or the place where it's sort of like, it's so complicated that if you don't have these dream dakinis with you the whole time or whatever, that you'll just get lost. You'll just be constantly bringing up new thoughts about what's wrong. How could I have done this to myself? Why am I here? Oh my God, this is awful. And all of the suffering, all of the confusion, all the difficulty going from one to another, to another, to another, to another, or constancy of all that. And there she is sitting there, and he somehow reaches through her to her memory, he somehow reaches through her to her that, you're not really here. This isn't really happening to you. This is not really what you wanted. You don't have to suffer like this forever. It was a very uplifting moment for me to see that.
I think the thing that I really loved about that was it's almost like the analogy of the forgetting. But remember, even though he was trying to get her to come back with him, she only came back when he agreed to join her there. And it was when he agreed to stay there with her and join with her there that she all of a sudden was like, oh my gosh, no, you can't stay here with me. This is not where we should be. But it was in his willingness to join with him and join with her one mind that the healing occurred, which I thought was really kind of a cool
Yeah, it really
thing
was.
that happened. Yeah.
Thanks for bringing that up. I forgot about that almost.
Yeah. Great movie though. We used to watch that a lot back in Binghamton, right, Alicia? We used to have movies where Art used to joke about it. We won't bring that up now, but I miss him.
Yeah.
Oh, but anyway, we have run beyond our time, a couple of minutes. Anybody else have anything they want to share before we close?
happy Halloween.
Yeah.
Halloween. Thank you, everyone.
Hey, I remembered about Halloween now. I've changed my profile, so next time I'm on Zoom, I have the lurch instead.
There you go.
Enjoy your day, and thank you very much. And I'll see you.
Thanks, everyone.
Yes, great conversations. Thank you, everyone, for joining in and
Bye-bye.
listening and sharing. Great to
Thank
see you
you.
all. See you next month.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
All right, bye.